Hello guys, thank you for tuning into this video. Today we're honored to have a tech genius who has successfully built a multi-million dollar business in Silicon Valley as well as in Pakistan. The CEO of CreativeMorph, Mr. Qasim Asad Salam, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Hamza. Thank you for having me. And before we start, I'd like to appreciate your work. And I've read most of your articles, and they're really inspirational. And I think you're doing a brilliant job,
Thank you.
especially with your investigative journalism and all the articles that you're writing.
Thank you very much for your kind words. It's a privilege for me that someone like you is reading my work.
Thank you. Thank you.
So take us to the beginning of your journey. How did your journey as a tech entrepreneur start?
So, do you want to hear the slightly longer version of the story, or do you want to hear like the most recent version of the story?
Tell us the longer version. Tell us everything about the beginning of your journey.
So I was always very passionate about technology. When I say always, I think probably because when I was really young, probably 8 or 9 years old, I saw my brother being on his computer all the time, which kind of fascinated me. And then I got my own computer when I was probably 9 years old. And then I built my first website when I was 11. So it started like when I was really young. I have always been super passionate since that point. So I built my first website at 11. Then I did like multiple startup ventures when I was 13, 14. Tried to build a search engine that didn't work, and tried to build an app that's looked like that is OLX of today, but no OLX existed at that point. But since I was really young, didn't have proper guidance, I was not able to execute it, but I was always very passionate about technology. So after that, since I had learned myself how to do web design and graphic design, I started working as a freelancer for different companies. So this is now me in probably my A levels or college, where I was working for a lot of fashion brands like Republic by Umar Farouk. I worked with Ali Zishan. I did a lot of web development for various clients while I was in college. At the same time, I went to LUMS, so I was also the director of IT in pretty much all the like big 4 or 5 societies, and that's how the word also got out. So I used to make free websites for them, and then when other people used to see those websites, they would call me up, and then I would charge them money, and that's kind of how I started. The early days were very difficult. Like when I was trying to get clients, I even reached out to random brands and asked them to and I said I'll build a free website for them, and they said, I still remember one of them replied that, Mr. Qasim, there's no such thing as a freelance in this world. What do you really want? So yeah, I did that in my first, second year of college. And then by the end of the third year, I came up with an idea of building an app that allowed people to express themselves. So in Pakistan, it's not easy to talk about taboo topics such as religion, such as politics, um, pretty much everything. So like there are lots of topics that you can't really talk about. So what this app did was it allowed people to express themselves. So the app worked in a way where people could connect with those around them from their own university only. So nobody outside the university could see what's going inside that particular app, which gave people a freedom to talk to their own peers without any risks. And then it also had an element of anonymity, so you could hide your identity, and then you could have a conversation and talk about anything that you wanted. So that kind of went viral. So within the first 2 weeks of launching the app, more than 70% of LUMS was on the platform. So that gave me a lot of traction. I got a lot of articles written about me. I got into Plan 9, which is an incubator slash accelerator in Lahore. So that was kind of like the start of my startup journey. and we scaled to 10 different universities, but I eventually had to shut it down because of various reasons, such as in those days, 5 social media bloggers went missing. I'm sure you remember. And then a couple of people from Plan 9, which is a government run incubator, didn't say stop it, but they said like just be careful of the kind of conversations that are happening. So valuing my life, I decided to shut down the startup. And then after that happened, I started a consultancy business that is still running to this day. And basically what we did was um, from sitting from Pakistan, we started doing projects for US based companies. And then within 1 year of starting it, I myself moved to San Francisco and started getting projects from San Francisco and then outsourcing them to Pakistan, where we have our office and where all the developers are based in Pakistan while I'm based in San Francisco.
Okay, very nice. So you have experience working in Silicon Valley and San Francisco as well as in Pakistan, and you've experienced the tech ecosystems in both places. So how do you compare and contrast the ecosystem in both of these places?
I think they're extremely different. I would say if the Pakistani ecosystem is a 1 year old child, the San Francisco ecosystem would be a 100-year-old mature person that's not about to die. So, like the entire ecosystem is built for startups, from just going online and registering your company to raising multi-million dollars. Even when you're at a seed stage, when you have just an idea and a few customers, you were able to raise over $1 million in San Francisco, and you still won't be in the news because that's so normal there. Over here in Pakistan, I only know of maybe 2 startups that have ever been able to do it. So I would say in San Francisco that happens every single day. In Pakistan, there have been 2 startups that have ever done it. So the ecosystem is extremely different. There are a lot of mentors, there are a lot of advisors, there's a lot of value for equity. So people work, mentors and advisors work just for equity because they know that startups can get big exits. No Pakistani startup has gotten a big exit. You might consider Kareem as a Pakistani startup, but that also went through Silicon Valley.
But how difficult was it for you as a Pakistani tech entrepreneur to make it in Silicon Valley?
I think it was difficult, but not in terms of technology. People are extremely helpful in Silicon Valley. When I went there, I thought I was the dumbest person ever. And then as soon as I started learning more and more, everybody was there to help. And it was wouldn't say very smooth, but it was still way easier than to do a startup in Pakistan. What was more difficult was sorting out the visa situation, because I just got a ticket and went on a B1, B2, which is a tourist slash business visa, but you're not allowed to work there. So that was the difficult part, figuring out the visa, getting the O1, getting the work permit sorted. So I would say that was more difficult than settling there, or getting mentors and advisors.
Very nice. So, do you have any advice or suggestions on how the tech ecosystem in Pakistan can be improved?
Yeah, lots of advice and suggestions. So when I started around 2016, the tech ecosystem of Pakistan was booming. People thought it is the next big thing, considering that the tech ecosystem in India has already boomed a lot. So they said Pakistan was next. I'm not political at all, but I would give Umar Saif like a lot of credit for everything that happened in Pakistan. And startups were getting a lot of traction. So an even longer version of my journey was that I was pitching at a pitch competition in Plan 9 in Lahore, when one of the judges was a VC from Silicon Valley. She would never have come to Pakistan if it was not for Umar Saif and the ecosystem he had created. And then she took me to Silicon Valley, said, I'm going to pay for everything and I want you to move there. So all of that was possible because of him. But then once he got removed for whatever political reasons, the the ecosystem was, nobody cared anymore about startups in Pakistan. And during Umar Saif's tenure, we do have startups like Markhor / Atoms, which is now a multi-million-dollar Silicon Valley startup as well. They raised $10 million recently, and they're like doing extremely well. So yeah, the suggestions like once Umar Saif left, nobody was giving like caring about startups in Pakistan, and I think the government needs to play a very big role. It is extremely hard to replace Umar Saif, and nobody else has been able to do it. So yeah, one suggestion is bring him back. So, and then secondly, I think one thing that has happened for the better is there's this guy called Atif Aman, who was the VP of growth at LinkedIn. So he's the guy who made LinkedIn what it is today, reaching 500 million. He joined when it only had a million or 2 million users now, and left when it had over 500 million users. So he has started a fund in Silicon Valley called Indus Valley Capital. So he's doing a lot of work to help Pakistani startups, and Airlift and Bazaar and a couple of other companies are his investments. So he's doing a lot of work. So what Pakistan needs for the startup ecosystem is early stage funding, good advisors, good mentors, and support from the government, so that startups can easily incorporate their companies, get lawyers, and sort all the legal stuff. So these are 3-4 things that I think our current government is making sure that it does not happen. So I hope that changes.
Yes, let's hope for the best. And do you think Pakistan is disadvantaged with the fact that companies like PayPal and Amazon and Google and Facebook don't have offices in Pakistan? So the people who work with them find it very difficult to connect with them professionally. So has that disadvantaged you or the people you know in the tech ecosystem?
Yeah, payments have been very difficult when I started. So I did not have a US based corporation. So that was really hard getting payments to Pakistan. There are a few services like Payoneer and TransferWise which make it easier, but they deduct a lot of fees. And so that has been hard. Obviously, Amazon is not in Pakistan. So I I think the services I've received through Amazon in the US and the services I've received through the Raz in Pakistan, they're not even comparable. I would probably over 50% of all of my Draz orders were either fake or were not what was promised on the website. So I don't even use it anymore. So yeah, like these big giants value the customers a lot, and the customers are suffering because all Amazon, PayPal, these companies, they have seamless processes. Google, I would say, is not very different in Pakistan or in the US because it's all online, it's all software, there's no physical goods, there's no payment transactions. So I would say it's pretty similar in the US or Pakistan. But Amazon and PayPal and Venmo, these companies need to exist in Pakistan, even if they're not these giants, but somebody else needs to build them locally.
Very interesting. And recently in the Supreme Court, a judge said that he was considering banning YouTube because many people shared their opinions which weren't conducive or in the interests of the state of Pakistan. So what do you think about these bans on apps like YouTube and PUBG and TikTok? Do you have any comments regarding that?
Yeah, I think the judiciary, the government, everybody should be focusing more on how they can push the ecosystem up rather than focusing on how they can push it down. If we can have that switch in mindset in Pakistan, a lot of things would be better. If they keep focusing on banning and pushing people down, then you can't blame the Pakistani entrepreneurs for not being able to make it.
Yes, absolutely true. So what excites Qasim Asad Salam?
A number of things. So I love creating an impact. So if there's anything, if the biggest advantage that I do have of being in Pakistan that nobody in Silicon Valley has, and that is purely because of me being a Pakistani and being born in Pakistan, and that is the advantage that I've been utilizing in my journey, is that you can get really good engineers in Pakistan at a fraction of the cost in the US. And that doesn't mean that the standard of living is anywhere above or below the US. The rent cost in SF is the average rent cost in SF is over $3,500 per month per apartment, and the apartment is the size of a shoebox. So those differences give us a very, very big edge if the engineering team is in Pakistan. So what excites me is creating a big impact, training our youth, these engineers that we get. Most of our engineers start with us when they're right out of college. We give them mentorship, we give them training, they talk to the top experts, they talk to my network in Silicon Valley directly, they work with them directly. So our business model is extremely different from any other consultancy business in Pakistan. We don't even consider ourselves a consultancy business. So what we do is, instead of getting projects and doing them in-house, we train our engineers and then they work with Silicon Valley companies directly. So they communicate with them directly and they work as part of those teams. So this is what excites me, is that an engineer sitting in Pakistan, in Lahore, is on par or even better than engineers sitting in Silicon Valley, and they're working directly, seamlessly throughout the day, with no boundaries, with no questions about religion, with no politics, with nothing but technology, and they can relate to each other as human beings. And that is a big impact that I think is also changing the mindset of our engineers. And my vision is to grow this company to over 1,000, over 2,000 engineers, over 10,000 engineers over the next few years in Pakistan, so that our young engineers not only can do the best work in the world, but also get this change of mindset, because there's not a lot of diversity in Pakistan, but through technology we can bring diversity in.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. So tell us more about your business venture, CreativeMorph. What kind of operations do you do? Do you build websites, apps? How do you help clients in the US and all over the world?
So our focus is web and mobile apps. We don't do like simple static websites or landing pages. And our business model, just like I said, is, so we're even rebranding the company pretty soon, but our business model is very simple, that we hire engineers, we train them in-house, we introduce them to other mentors in the US, which are engineering managers. And then once they're trained, we place them in different companies in the US. So like we're under NDAs, but we're working with one of our largest clients is a public limited company in the US, based out of Washington, multi-billion-dollar company. So that's kind of like our business model, is that we train engineers and then we place them in different companies. And these engineers then work as part of those companies. So they have their own daily stand-ups, which is they have like a check-in every single day, talking to their peers in the US of what they've done in the entire day. And then it's kind of like, that's the business model that we're working with.
Okay, very interesting. And the world is now using artificial intelligence and machine learning in order to become more productive and efficient. So how is AI and machine learning in Pakistan? Do you see people working on it significantly?
Yes, I do. So there's this company called Affinity that has most of their engineering power in Pakistan. Other than that, I think they're not working on it at a company level, but they're working on it as remote engineers. So these individuals are working from Pakistan, from inside Pakistan, and nobody even knows that they're working for these US-based companies, and even companies in the UK and around the world, on AI, on machine learning, and they're working as full-time employees for these companies that are working remotely. So a lot of work is being done in that regard. Even but there's no, like, at a company level, I cannot name like a company that's doing AI work inside Pakistan for Pakistan. Even Affinity is not doing it for Pakistan. So yes, a lot of work is being done in Pakistan by engineers, but for companies that are based in the US, not for companies that work inside Pakistan.
Okay. And many of our viewers would not even know what AI is or machine learning is and how it can help the average person. So would you like to introduce these concepts to our viewers in a simplified way?
Yeah, so think of AI as just a human being. And how do I explain this in a very simplified? Yeah, I can with an analogy or with an example.
Hmm.
So how a human being works is that you have a game. Let's say there's a very popular game called Dota 2, and then you have a human being that starts to play that game. That human being clicks on different buttons and learns what the game does, and then that human being is told or understands that the way to win this game is to destroy the enemy's base. So we have a very simple set of rules that the human being understands, and then he plays around and optimize. So the more he plays, the more he can learn how to play the game and how to be good at it, what tactics work and what tactics don't work. The AI does the same thing. So the AI is given a set of instructions, and instead of so the human being spends maybe 1 year on the game, maybe 10, maybe 20. The AI can run simulations uh, of 500 years within a few weeks. So the AI will be able to be way better than a normal human being because it can run the same simulations. Um, it can run the same simulations like uh, like for a normal human being, it's going to take maybe 100 years. For the AI, it's going to take like 2 weeks. So it can learn really, really fast. You give it data, and then the AI tries to understand that data, and then you give it a set of instructions of what to do. For example, getting from point A to point B, and then the AI keeps trying, and then it keeps learning from its own mistakes, ultimately beating human beings, basically.
Very interesting. And how can the advancement of AI and machine learning help the average person?
So it is helping the average person in so many different ways, from predicting the weather to predicting your Google search results to um, like Facebook's feed that you see every single day, or which it is not sorted through any time. It's not chronologically sorted. So that feed that you see every single day, the AI decides what you see and what you don't see based on your interests. So the AI is learning at an individual level of what kind of information Hamza Azhar Salam likes to view. Does he like to view more political content? If yes, then show more political content. Does he like to view more cartoons? Then show more cartoons. Does he like to view more anything, football, you know, stuff? Then the AI will show you more football stuff. So as far as technology and these big companies go, the AI is like everywhere. You go to Amazon, you might have something called recommended for you. You go to IMDb, it might show you movies that it recommends you should watch, or Netflix, or even TikTok, the recent sensation. So TikTok, the entire feed is AI. All of it is AI predicting what you want to see and then showing you that content.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. And so let's go back to your journey as a tech entrepreneur. I've witnessed it from day one, and I've analyzed that you've succeeded a lot, but you've also failed a lot in life. So, would you like to tell our viewers what you learned from your multiple failures?
Yeah, I think when I talk to people, I tell them like I am probably the biggest failure that I know. The best part about failure is, so firstly, don't think of failure as something negative. The worst part in Pakistan or in any other country is thinking of failure as something negative, because if you take it as something negative and don't learn anything out of it, then it is something negative. But if you fail and learn stuff out of it, then it is not negative at all. So I think I've failed at so many things that I've failed more than I've succeeded. However, the best thing about failure, one more thing about failure, is that you can fail 100 times, but you need to succeed only once.
Yes.
So then the odds are in your favor. So if you try something, let's say in the startup ecosystem, people say there's anywhere between 95 to 99% failure rate. So which means that if you try enough times, you only have to succeed once, and you can minimize that percentage. So it does not have to be 99%. You can have good mentors, you can have good advisors, and you can minimize that rate. You can be lucky. You can, have a good tech ecosystem helping you out that can reduce the odds. But yeah, so in my journey, campus feed, you might think, is a failure. The company has shut down, it's not working anymore. But if I did not have that company, I would not be where I am today. If we did not have that company, I would not meet the angel investor, the VC that took me to Silicon Valley. I would not be pitching at that stage where I was found by this VC. So yeah, like, I think I welcome failure. So they say in Silicon Valley, they say fail, but fail fast. So failure is completely fine as long as you just fail fast and move on to the next thing.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. So Qasim, now you're a successful millionaire tech entrepreneur, and you've made it in Silicon Valley as well as in Pakistan. But a few years back, you were an individual who was struggling to find their place in this world. So what would you tell that person about your journey and about success?
So one, I tell them fail fast, just like I was saying. The other thing is, it's a really interesting thing. So I was in the US, and there's this billionaire, Tim Draper. So he has this program where he takes people to on tech entrepreneurs, and like very selected tech entrepreneurs, to to his farm, which is less of a farm and more like a jungle, which is like, it is, I think, 5,000 acres or something. Like, it's insanely big. He takes them there, and he goes there himself with the entrepreneurs. And you need to take food with you, and your budget is less than $2 a day. So in Pakistani terms, that's 300 rupees, 300 rupees per day. But food in the US is extremely expensive. So if you were to think of it in Pakistani terms, I would say it's less than 50 rupees a day. So you take that food there, and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't have a place to sleep, so you sleep in camps that you build yourself. You don't have a place to shower. We did in 4 days, we did over 70, 80 miles of walking. And then you have to do these different activities where you have no idea what's going to happen. So for example, you need to, and Tim Draper is doing all of these things with you. So there's like this broken pieces of wood that you need to collect and nail them together, build a boat, and cross a river, for example. So things like these. And at the end of those 4 days, where Tim Draper is doing all of these activities with you, you realize, and he also tells you, that anything can happen in the world. As long as you're alive, you can still stand up, and you can still do something and get over it, and pass all these challenges. The human species is very adaptable. So even if you have nothing, even if you don't have a place to shower, even if you don't have a place to sleep, even if you don't have enough money to have food, you can still survive. And if you can keep on surviving, you can keep on surviving, you can get over it. And those 4 days were over, and they're still one of the most memorable days of my life, where we were doing all these activities with Tim Draper. And he even did a few really crazy things. Like, there was a bonfire going on, and he just walked inside the fire, and he said, you think fire is like, it's going to burn you, it might kill you, but if you just walk through it, nothing happens. So like, and then everybody started walking through the fire, like stupid things like that. But when you have a mentor like Tim Draper, who's made it, who's 60 years old, if he can do it with you, then you can do it. The last day, we were up since 7 a.m. in the morning. And after doing all of these activities, at 8 p.m. at night, they said, we're going to go home, and there will be buses waiting at the stop. So we were super tired. Out of 60 people, only 20 people were left. So everybody was exhausted. We went there, and there were no buses there. And Tim Draper said, life can take turns, and this is another one of them. Now we're gonna, starting at 8 p.m., we're gonna walk 12 or 13 miles on a beach in the middle of the night, and we're going to go to a lighthouse. So we walked from 8 p.m. till 4 a.m. but he was doing it with us. So a 60-year-old man was doing it with us. So we thought if he can do it with us, I'm sure that we can do it as well. And that is the big lesson for anybody that's at my stage 3 or 4 years ago. Keep at it. If you quit, that's it, that's over. But if you keep going on, and as long as you're not dead, you can still make your way through whatever circumstance that you're in.
Yes, that's a very inspirational story. And Qasim, we're extremely grateful for your time, for sharing your life's journey and the things you've learned with our viewers. And in the end, is there anything you would like to add or any message you would like to send to the people who are watching you?
Yeah, so I would say something that I touched upon earlier as well, that if you're born in Pakistan, it is not necessary that you're disadvantaged. Um, so my advice for the government was to improve the startup ecosystem. However, that does not mean that you cannot start in Pakistan. I started in Pakistan and I used that to my advantage. So had I not been born in Pakistan, I would not have access to such top talented engineers at a cost that is way below way below the engineer cost in the US. By the way, just the average engineering cost in San Francisco is $120,000 a year. That's 2 crore Pakistani rupees. So being born can be at an advantage. So keep at it, and like whatever cards that you're dealt, you play those cards like in any situation. So you cannot choose your own cards, but you can at least learn to play your cards well. So that would be the last message.
Okay, thank you very much, Qasim, for your time, and I wish you a very successful journey ahead.
Thank you, Hamza. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye bye.